Is love a choice? A question that you might already have a gut instinct response to. Some will believe in love at first sight. Others might believe that you have to make a conscious decision to fall in love. The phrase fall in love might suggest that love is binary and it can switch on and off in a moment. Some might believe that love is not so binary and it sits on more of a spectrum that can shift along the line day to day, depending on how that person makes you feel. What about love in its relationship to your feelings? Is love only a feeling? Or is love better defined by one's actions? Is love always unconditional? Or are some types of love conditional? If you loved me, you'd have done this. If they loved you, they wouldn't have done that. They only loved them while they were that person. Or maybe a word prone to so many different types of subjective interpretations is only a fault in our language. Tomorrow, we explore this topic live on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram Live, with guests from different walks of life. Until then, we want to hear what you think. So comment your thoughts in this post and vote in our live story poll. We may share your comments and results of the poll in the show. There will even be an opportunity for you to jump on the show and talk about what you think live, if you're feeling brave. Until then, I look forward to reading your comments. Hello, and welcome to Introspective Thoughts, the show where we talk about interesting topics around our cognitive diversity, such as is love a choice, which is our topic today. Apologies for those of you who tried to join us on Instagram. I tried to go live on there and it's not working, so I have to put it up there later. So we are just live on Facebook and YouTube. To kick off our show today, we have three amazing guests for our very first show. It's really exciting to launch this initiative. But before we get started, I thought I'd give a bit of a background as to how this idea came about. So the short story is I was driving along a motorway and thinking introspectively about when I have, I guess, what parts of my life I'm most happy or most joyful. And that's usually with my family, with my friends and meeting new people. But I realized that despite all those things, and those are quite common amongst lots of different people, I found that I spend my time in my highest state of joy when I'm discussing interesting topics, interesting social topics in particular. I've always been interested in our diversity as a society, not just our diversity within the obvious things that you can see, but our diversity within the ways that we think as well. So this podcast series is hoping to bring out and celebrate that diversity in a very broad sense by discussing lots of different types of social topics. So I actually came up with this idea about a year ago, and since then I've come up with between 20 and 30 different social topics and ideas that I can discuss on this platform. And I'm really excited to be able to finally have the time to be able to launch it. And with me today are three very special guests I'm going to bring on now. Thank you for joining us, guys. Got Georgina, Julie, and Mike.
Hey,
welcome to the stream, guys. Thank you for joining me today. These guys want to know I was frantically trying to set up the Instagram stream beforehand and I failed. That was why we're launching late. We are just live on Facebook and YouTube. But before we get into our very interesting topic, is love a choice? I'm just going to get you guys to quickly introduce yourselves and what you do, starting with you, Georgina.
Okay. Hi, I'm Georgina. I'm a mental health nurse and a psychotherapist by profession.
Delicious. After you. Thanks, Julie.
Hi, I'm Julie. I'm a personal assistant at a concert promoting company, and I'm also studying part-time psychodynamic therapy to be a counsellor.
And go ahead, Mike.
I'm Mike. I've recently graduated as a software developer, and I work as a software developer. So there we go.
Awesome. Thank you for the intros. My name's Andre. I work in marketing at Middlesex University, looking after graduates and trying to build communities and help with employability. Thank you for joining the show, Dan. Always contributing very valuable comments. Smiley face. So let's get into it.
That's what I
Let's
think.
not
It's a
keep
good
people waiting. Is love a choice? Now, before this stream yesterday, I put out the comment and I got people to vote on it in Instagram. And I'm just going to check what the results were based on our public opinion. So we can start off with what the public are saying, but it's not coming up. Give me a second. I just realized I'm on the wrong Instagram, so I can't check it. It's the problem I have
Why?
multiple social media accounts. All right. So our public have voted, and our public have decided that 18 votes in total. 10 people believe that love is a choice, and 8 people believe that love is not a choice. And I'm really glad that it's so evenly split, because it's going to make for a really interesting discussion, especially when the opinions of the public are so split. So before we get into it, does anyone have any first initial thoughts about whether they think love is a choice or not?
Yeah, I think that question, immediately when people hear that, they think of relationships. That's what I think. That's the first thing I thought of. And I think yes, in terms of relationships, but there's different types of love, and I think it's gets a bit more complicated then. And yeah, I think in relationships, yes. So I can't really have a solid answer overall, though.
Do you mean like you might in a relationship you choose to love somebody?
Yeah, I think you choose every day to love someone.
Yeah, I agree. I think it is a choice to love.
I see you nodding away there, Georgina. Does that mean you agree as well?
I think there's kind of two sides of the question. Like you said, Mike, there's love in relationships, and then it's how we learn to love from our kind of family and our upbringing and our attachment to our mums and dads and things like that. So sometimes it's an odd question, I think, in itself. Is love a choice? Because love means different things to different people in completely different ways.
I think it's hard because you can't define love. Almost, it's like it's undefinable. So it's like really hard to answer a question about it.
I'd say that because everything in life is a choice, why should love be any different?
So what about if we look at love as a feeling, like an emotional response, like happiness, sadness? Do you guys see love as something that's an emotional response or a feeling over a long period of time?
Pass. Next question.
I was talking to my family about this earlier. I had this whole debate with my family, first my brother, then my mum, and I let them go off and see what their opinions were. It's interesting, in my family, we've got about half the family on one side and half the family on the other side, in terms of whether it's a choice. And I guess the main distinction in that conversation was around whether love is an emotion, something that you feel, or is it a state that you're in?
So love is an emotion, but you get different kinds of love. So you can get romantic love, you can get platonic love. They're all still a feeling, right?
Yeah,
of course. Yeah.
So, and you choose whether you want it to be romantic or you want it to be platonic.
Yeah, I think like the beginning of a relationship, for example, when you have like the honeymoon period, and I think you feel differently about that person compared to like a long way down the line. It's a different type of love. So yeah, it's then you don't really, the feeling, like in terms of feelings, it's different, I would say.
So maybe love isn't the feeling.
Maybe I guess you could say it's initially a feeling, and then you choose to stay in love. Potentially.
I don't like that saying. To be in love.
All right. What about the I guess when thinking about this, and this is an intro as well, do you guys believe in love at first sight?
No.
No.
Well, like, all the people out there that fall in love in first sight, you believe that's not real?
No, I don't.
What is it they're feeling if not love?
Initial
Connection.
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 No, they like the look of someone. They go, yeah. That'll do.
That's it.
Maybe it's not.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't
Maybe it's
think-
not
I don't
love, and
think-
maybe it's lust.
It's yeah, it has to be.
Mhm.
Because it's just it doesn't make sense, like love at first sight. How do you mean
It's
when
like-
you say love at first sight? Do you mean literally you've seen a person, you're like, oh my god, I'm in love, I know I'm going to marry that person?
Yeah, that's
Is
what
that
I
what
mean.
you mean?
Yeah.
Definitely not. I would say.
You could never, yeah. But people
Yeah.
say that, don't they?
They say that.
Oh,
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine how many wedding vows there's been in the past with people saying,
Yeah.
as soon as I saw them, I knew it was love at first sight. And maybe it felt like that for them. Maybe it felt like them. Maybe in their reality, maybe their own perception of love. Because I think this is one of the things that's going to be important here is people's different perceptions of what love is. Because like you said at the start, Mike, love can't really be defined as such.
Yeah.
I've tried to look at definitions of it, and they're all completely different and almost contradictory to each other.
Yeah.
same
Of course.
And I think it's good that we've kind of separated the idea of the love you have with your family and the love you have in a relationship kind of circumstance as well, and that platonic love that you might have with your friends as well, maybe. So I guess a good question would be, when it comes to your family, obviously people through time, in the first instance, maybe your guard's down when it comes to family because of who they are and their status and their relationship with you. You're completely vulnerable and you love that person. But obviously there's people in time through experiences who fall out of love with family members. So speaking on that topic, can you regain that love? And if you do, is it in the same way that you gain love in the first instance through a relationship? I guess what factors would be considered there? So is it a case where in order to love someone, you need to have a certain level of trust, you need to have a certain level of openness and vulnerability at the same time? Like, what are the characteristics of falling in love that you think are important? Because all of you seem to be in the mindset that love is probably likely a choice. So what are those characteristics that allow you to put your guard down and say, yes, I love this person?
Isn't love, I mean, in the sense that what you described it as, going from family to a relationship, wouldn't that be kind of, aren't all our romantic relationships in part replicated from the way we've learned to love in our family or through our family?
So we learn how to love through what we experience through our family. So
Like, I'm going into a bit of Freud, but it's essentially maybe that we could be we could be repeating those dynamics of the family relationships within our romantic relationships because of how we've learned it. But then I'm not sure if you can fall out of love, depending on your definition of love, with your family. You can cut off contact.
Yeah, I think that's quite a good point you made actually about like learning love.
Yeah.
Because people do learn love differently. Like quite often it happens that people who grew up in like an abusive family often tend to be abusive to other people and their family. So it's almost, I don't know how to explain it. Like, because they've grown up in a very weird love and abusive love, that's all they know, and that's how they express love to other people in a very twisted way. But I think that is quite a good point to make, that people's perspective of love is quite distort and broad.
Can be,
Kind of needs you to have expectations, right? Because everyone goes into a relationship with a certain amount of expectations, especially in early relationships. Like when you're a lot younger, you go into a relationship, you expect a certain thing or expect a certain attitudes, expect a certain amount of commitment to that relationship based on the direction you want it to go in, and that's very different. And from family could be that very well could be a place where you learn what your expectations are.
Also, like films, and I think people like, especially when you're younger, you see like Disney movies or whatever. I'm sure like especially young girls see like, oh, yeah, I want to be a princess.
Definitely, that's where I learned it.
I think that's like the best. That's probably like the most common way people see what they think it should be.
But
like.
Is that a true portrayal of what love is?
No, well, it's not, is it really? Yeah,
Definitely
not really. Which
the
is
rom-coms.
Yeah. I think that's why a lot of like.
But people, so like what Andre said is, but those expectations. It's like you see something, and you're like, well, why isn't my love like that? Why aren't you acting like that? Because that's how it should be, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess that happens a lot later on in life as well, when we learn certain things from one relationship and we might have had toxic relationships or things that we didn't like about past relationships, and then we project that and have a higher level expectation in that area for the next relationship, or baggage if you want to simplify that. And I guess you have to go through a few of those to really be able to define what it is that you want and what your values are and who can fit into that. So obviously there's some things that you can let go, other things are crossing the line for you, and you know that that person's values aren't aligned with your own. And I guess that's where many relationships don't work, is when the values don't align, or there's a lack of willingness to sacrifice some of your own values to meet halfway with other people as well. I think that's a really interesting thing, especially later in life, because you learn love in different ways at different stages of life. It becomes something different the more you get into relationships.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's perceived really. A relationship is perceived like a non-family relationship, like personal relationship, I guess. I don't know what you call it. But it's perceived as something like so magical and easy, but but it is really, it's great. Obviously it's magical and it is great, but it's also hard. It's very hard work, especially if you're with someone like me. But, yeah, it's hard work, and you have to maintain it and make lots of sacrifices, especially living together and stuff. But
you continue to choose to like love one another.
Yeah,
it's not just you're in love and that's it. You have to continually choose to do it.
Yeah, you don't skip down the stairs and be like, "Ooh, this is great."
Yeah. I mean, what about the feelings you feel when you're in love, though? How do you know what point you're in love? Is there a point, or is it more of a, like I said in the intro, is it more of a spectrum where you fall in love over time?
Go on, girls.
I don't like that saying of falling in love, so I'm probably not the best person to talk about that.
Why don't you like that saying? Because you've mentioned that twice. So.
Because it makes it seem very fragile.
Love is fragile.
No, because I think it's always a choice. So it's only fragile if you don't want to persevere with it anymore, I guess. Or I don't know.
Yeah.
Commitment.
Yeah, I guess in the honeymoon stage, it's not that fragile.
It develops, doesn't it?
Let's say, to what extent is love a choice? Because like you couldn't just pick a random person and be like, I'm going to choose to love that person, and then you wouldn't be happy. Like I'm a heterosexual man. If I wanted to be like, okay, I'm going to be gay tomorrow, all right, I'm going to choose to love that bloke, I couldn't do that because I'm not gay. So like, to what extent is love a choice in that sense?
One day you might find someone that
tickles my fancy.
It's like a spectrum. It's like what Andre said. It's a spectrum, isn't it?
It is, but
it's constantly changing.
Because there has been people that have gone their whole lives not knowing they're interested in the opposite sex, for example, and discover later in life that they developed that kind of relationship with someone.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Goes on to say as well is the idea of homosexuality, or those who are interested in those without genders, period. Could that be a spectrum as well? And could we all be on the spectrum of homosexuality in some way, shape, or form? And how much of that is determined by our upbringing, our background, our experiences? And I guess you could kind of relate that to love as well. I mean, we all been brought up with, like Georgina said earlier, this idea of love that we've learnt from our families. But going on to think about how we identify love, I think that's very subjective, depending on the individual and their experiences and their beliefs.
Isn't that who to love though? What you mentioned, like, is who we love the choice, or is, I don't know, there seems to be kind of, can we choose who we love, or can we choose if we love altogether, or I don't know.
I think, can we choose to love altogether?
Yeah.
I think, and there was I guess there's a choice for love, but then there's also the feeling of love you might have for someone who might be a friend you've known for a long time, and then it turns into something else, something more. I think your realization of that will take a lot longer based on your experiences, beliefs, opinions on different things as well. Yeah, let's move on. So you've got this idea of the spectrum. So I guess if it happens over time, is it just a case of having so many positive experiences that over a period of time accumulated, you feel like, okay, I'm now in love with this person? And is there a difference between loving someone and being in love with someone?
Loving someone and being in love with someone. Well, yeah, I guess loving someone is choosing to love, and being in love with someone is not.
So are you, like, would people be in love with someone their whole life?
I don't know. No, maybe. I don't know. It's hard. I haven't lived my whole life yet. I don't think so, anyway.
That's not the end.
You keep us posted.
Yeah, I guess here's my opinion on that particular idea of a spectrum. So I guess for me, I feel like there's, like I said at the end of this intro, there's probably a flaw in the language that we use when it comes to defining love. I feel like love's very much like happiness in comparison to joy. So happiness is an emotional response to an event or to a thought in your mind. So usually it's external, it's influenced by external factors or something that you thought about. You get this feeling of love. And then joy, on the other hand, is more of a long-term state that you feel as a result of having lots of repeated, I guess, events or experiences with happiness. So the end of every week, for example, end of every day, because they hammer the feeling on a scale of 1 to 10. If you're averaging maybe at 8 or 9 all the time, then you're probably in a state of joy within your life and fulfillment within your life as well. And I think you can probably compare the idea of love, and I'm just going to say use the term in love as a descriptive to separate it from this original idea of love, in the sense that I think you can feel love many times. And I think you can have experiences where you felt love for maybe a partner or someone that you're seeing. But there's always this crossover point where you realize, okay, this is something more. And I'm willing to sacrifice part of myself and be more vulnerable and commit to this individual. I think that's what being in love is like. I think it's a commitment to another individual to say, regardless of what they've done, who they are, what they've said, I'm not going to judge that individual, but see the good sides of them. And I guess
that's just love, though.
Is that? Or
that's not being in love. That's just love.
I feel like that's
in
like
my
emotional
opinion.
response. I feel like love's an emotional response to different events or different thoughts in your mind, because you feel that temporarily, that feeling is like, oh, this is love. That goes within the next few minutes. Like it's, for me, it's an emotional response.
But so can you love someone that you've had an argument with? Like, can you love someone that?
Yeah.
So what's the feel? Is the feeling changed just because you've had an argument, or because something bad happened, or do you still love them? It's not no longer.
You're in love with them. I would say if that repeatedly happens over time, that feeling of being in love, as I think the moment you're not able to make those sacrifices anymore, that regardless of who that person is, in their best and in their worst, you're not willing to accept that anymore, then that's when you fall out of love. I don't think you, I know you don't like that term, but I think that's when you can fall out of love.
But you can still love them.
I'm suggesting in that term, you can love things that they do or parts of who they are, but I think you can fall out of love with them, because I think love in itself is more of an
in the
emotional
extreme sense. Like in the honeymoon phase, kind of, we're talking about romantic relationship. That's when people say they're in love.
The strong outburst or explosion of something, whatever that is, endorphins or whatever that might be.
I don't know.
Is love not a conditioned response? Great question from Alex.
Hello, Alex.
If anyone wants to jump on the stream and join us, there's a link at the bottom now, and you can literally join us on stream on video. If you're feeling confident, head to www.linklive.site/join us. I'll leave that up there for a few seconds.
Alex love mean not conditioned as in taught? I'm assuming.
Conditioned response.
So well, I would say no. It depends what type of love. But you initially, it's like if you have a baby. So a lot of people women who want abortions, and they end up not getting that abortion, they're like, oh, I'm going to give the baby away. They often feel a really strong attachment to that child, and then they're like, no, I can't possibly do this now. I've seen my baby, I love it unconditionally. So I feel like in that sense, humans are kind of hardwired to love your child or someone in your immediate family, just for obvious purposes, because otherwise the population would just be dead. So I feel like in that sense it's not a conditioned response.
Isn't that, but what you mentioned, being hardwired, would be wouldn't that be, I mean, so I guess hardwiring, we're automatically
you like come out of the womb with that.
It's in our nature that we want to love.
Yeah, okay. you come out of the, you just think, okay, that's just, I don't have control almost over that. That's just
your body's sending.
That's just an instinct. Let's say that
your body's doing it. Okay.
Yeah.
I would say that love might be a conditioned response, just because who we get connected to is, I think, relates back as well to the kind of our early experiences and all of that, and the kind of our body's response to someone. Why do we fall for somebody and like one person and not the other person? Because of, I don't know, lots of different things, how they look, how they feel, their energy, and all the rest of it. And I don't know enough about the human conditioning around that, but somebody a lot smarter than me said about the psychosomatic points that could be triggered when we meet somebody who also hits those same psychosomatic points. We might fall for somebody who can click into place. I don't know if that makes sense.
That's a good point. Yeah,
but it's I don't know. It's half and half, I think, with the conditioning. Because I think we probably do go for people that we know from we know, like we sense more than we know.
Yeah,
Maybe
it's still, I'm still so like confused as to whether, like, my answer now, I'm getting more confused with the yes. I'm like, oh, but it's good though. It's good. I think it's good to question both sides of the coin.
Yeah,
definitely. Because what is love even? What is even love? It's ridiculous, isn't it? It's
Yeah, you can't really.
love is ridiculous. Probably the best definition I've heard of it so far. I can read you a few. I can read you a few actual definitions here of what I found on the website.
Yeah, let's do that.
Because it's on the website, obviously it's trustworthy.
100%. Yeah.
Wikipedia.
So the first one: a willingness to prioritize another's well-being or happiness above your own. Extreme feelings of attachment, affection, and need. Dramatic, sudden feelings of attraction and respect. A fleeting emotion of care, affection, and like. This one's interesting. A choice to commit to helping, respecting, and caring for another, such as in a marriage or when having a child. And the last one, some combination of the above emotions. And the likelihood is it's probably the last one.
Yeah, it's got to be.
Some combination of that. The fact that it's even open to so many different interpretations like that, and love can fit into all of those. It's my opinion personally is that the word love is so broad that we could probably have come up with better language to describe these different types of love in the first instance.
Yeah.
I think they've all got like a common thread though.
What's that?
Every type of love, like it's all should have a common thread, like care and
yeah.
I want to say safety. I don't really want to say safety though.
Yeah. I guess it's so difficult to put your finger on it. But I know what you're trying to say. Like it's got like the same branches, I guess. Like,
yeah.
I know what you mean.
I think a big part of it is a willingness to be vulnerable with someone and almost sacrifice a part of yourself to put them above you personally.
There's actually
I think it takes a lot to do that, and I think that commitment in itself is more of a choice. And I think even though if we feel like someone is not the perfect person for us, I still think we can love that person and stay with that person for a long period of time if we choose to do that, especially when it comes to things like when kids are in the mix. We can choose to stay and be with that person. And because of that external factor, it's more important to us that we try and work at maintaining that love for the partner for the sake of the kids. And I think that's something that is a choice. You can choose not to do that. And I guess it depends on your own external factors that might influence you there. I think fear is almost as powerful as love and can make you do things or make you make decisions like choosing to love, in my opinion, that might go against your natural instincts.
It's like polar opposites, isn't it? Fear and love, I guess.
Yeah.
And they're both so strong. So there's actually a really good Alan Watts kind of quote about love that he says the act of faith for all life is an act of faith and an act of gamble, and the most powerful thing that can be done is to surrender, and love is an act of surrender to another person. So I think like you kind of said that, Andre, as well. Like you sacrifice so much. You are surrendering everything, all your safety and everything, to give to another person.
We'll come and hear from Alex. Alex is all over this. If you're the last two people on Earth, how would you know if that was love or facilitation to ensure success? So fulfilling your human needs, I guess. That's an interesting point.
It's like desire, isn't it, over love? I guess then in that sense it could be circumstantial, because like that happens a lot. Like if you're just both you make do with like the circumstances. This person is lovable, so like to an extent they're lovable.
I wouldn't want my love to be.
No,
make do.
No one would. But I'm saying that, yeah, it happens. Like, I know it happens quite a lot, like where people make do with the circumstances.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know.
Yeah.
It's
Right,
just,
we've got someone who's joined us. So we've got Addy Katz, who's going to share her thoughts with us. Is love a choice? Addy Kat.
To some
Hello.
extent.
Welcome to the
Hello. Hi. Well, I think love is to some extent a choice. So obviously when you want to love people, you emotionally choose to invest in them, and that can develop into love. Whereas if it's, someone you grew up with, someone you will, unquestionably walk to the ends of the earth for, like, my siblings or something like that, of course I love them. I'm never not going to love them, even if they're total beep, beep, beeps to me.
Thank you for the censorship.
Yeah. And then, you've got the kind of love of, maybe you, I don't know, see something wonderful happening in the world, and then suddenly there's that universal love that washes over you. Some people might bunk that down to religion, other people, just feeling alive, but there is a sense of wonderment going around that, it might be able to trigger that sense of endless love, So I think to some extent it is a choice, and to others it isn't. It sort of depends on the situation.
So maybe Taha's just contributed a comment as well. Perhaps we're oversimplifying something that is meant to be complex. For example, different types of loves makes more sense to me. The idea that love is a category full of different emotions rather than it being one thing. Would you agree with that, Ali?
Yeah, I think I would.
What about the rest of you
Summarize
guys?
it quite nicely.
Would you guys agree with that statement as well?
Yeah, definitely. I think it goes back to what we were saying at the beginning about people loving different ways, and what Mike was saying about people being in maybe an abusive relationship, and there's in that is still their way of knowing how to love someone, even if it is harmful, or I guess not the nicest way, I guess, but it's different because it's all might be learned behavior.
it's like Stockholm syndrome, isn't it? Like,
yeah,
when captives, is it captives fall in love
with their captor,
captor, so the hostage.
to some extent. I don't remember which one it's called, but of the different kinds of loves, there is a love that forms from dependency. So the other person's always there, they're predictable, they're, no matter what happens, you know that they're there for you. And in that sense, lots of people can develop this sort of dependency form of love where they don't know how to maybe get out of it because it's just always there for them.
Definitely.
So maybe love is based on our core human needs to want to be able to connect with one another, as we're very social animals. On our own in a room for 3 days, we literally go insane with no external stimuli or connection with other people.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, I keep interrupting. Erich Fromm, American-German philosopher, actually wrote a very interesting book on it called I think it was The Art of Loving, something like that. I read it a while ago, but he suggests that because we have left the earth, we've left our animal nature, we need a community, we need that human connection, and we need that, physical and emotional human connection to other people, and to be in a community and to feel like we belong. Because, which I do see a lot in people.
What about also the need to expand our, I guess, humanity in general? Alex's comment around, he's talking about immense succession in the idea of furthering your family tree or species. Would that be love, or would that be a need that we have as a human race?
I guess it's different choices that are made there. And it goes back to kind of how we learn, or how we grew up in society, and what society we did grow up in. So kind of back in the olden days, before women's had right, women's role was to get into marriage and to reproduce and carry on that family line. And then as times go on, women have more choice about who they can love and what if they want to love somebody and what they want to do, and whether they want to reproduce or whether they want to have a career. So it's, I don't know.
Or both.
Huh? What did you say? Or both? Yeah, exactly. Or both. We can have both. Yeah, we can have both. Exactly.
All right. So final thoughts and final opinions on the topic. Maybe if anyone's got any opinions that they had at the start of this that might have changed by the end of it after hearing this discussion. Over to you, Mike, first. Do you believe that love is a choice, and has your opinion changed at all since the beginning?
I don't know. To be honest, I still would say it's a choice. Yeah, I would say personal relationships, I think, is a choice. Immediate family and stuff, a bit more confusing. I'd say I'm more leaning towards no, but then I'd still be a bit 50-50 with that. So to be honest, still none the wiser.
Julie, final thoughts.
I still think every type of love is a choice, regardless. Yeah, it's always a choice, I think.
All right, and Ali Cat.
I'd still say to some extent it is a choice, and to others it isn't. It's, for some people it's easier to stop caring or start caring about people. For others it isn't. So I think it's still a very individual thing. But I think the love that is offered is always there, whether you choose to accept it or not.
Powerful words. Georgina, final thoughts.
Not sure. I think it's a bit half and half, really. So for some relationships, like family relationships, people you grew up with, mum, dad, siblings, I think it's quite difficult to cut them or to emotionally cut them off, regardless of whether you can physically cut them off. And other relationships, maybe it's more a choice. Romantic relationships and things like that is maybe a choice.
And for me, I'd probably say there's probably, I guess, two different ideas of love. Personally, I feel like there's the love in relation to happiness, as I was talking about earlier, where it's a very momentary feeling that fades very quickly, and it's not something that you feel all the time. And I think there's this different version of love that happens over a long period of time when you allow yourself to be vulnerable and sacrifice a part of yourself to the service of another individual. And I think there's two clear distinctions there. And I think that's kind of love that you have when you're born into a family and being raised. There's so many more external factors that contribute to that being in the state as soon as you're born, and it being considered this what's the type of love called? Help me out. Unconditional love. The unconditional.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think there's a lot more factors at play there that make that a feeling that's so immediate. And that's my personal opinion. All right. Thank you very much, all of you, for coming. And thank you, Ali Cat, for joining us spontaneously.
Great.
That's very courageous of you.
Well, send my invite in the post next time. I'll get it quicker.
I'll add you to the list of people who's willing to join our future shows, and I'm sure you'll jump all over it, right, Ali Cat?
Yeah.
Yes, awesome. And for any males watching, I've got a list of about 7-8 people who want to join, and it's just me and Mike Male, so we could do with some more male presence on the show to get a difference of opinion and as diverse and hosts and co-hosts as possible. So yeah, send me a message if you're interested. And for now, I'll bring the session to a close. Thank you very much, all of you, for joining us.
Thank you. See you later.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Adios.